What's the hubbub? What if I told you the biggest critics of the new DCU are secretly the people paying the closest attention to it? I'll prove it. Think about it. Every time Lanterns is in the news, every Restore the SnyderVerse channel suddenly has 10 videos ready to go. When Supergirl trends, they can't stop talking about it either. And the craziest part? A lot of these channels push fake information, misleading rumors, and out-of-context reports from Cosmic Book or Crook News just to fit an agenda. One day the DCU is dead, the next day they're twisting positive news into proof the SnyderVerse is somehow returning. But the second you call it out, Snyder Bros instantly get defensive and say, Zack Snyder lives rent-free in your head. No, clearing up fake narratives and correcting misinformation isn't obsession, it's setting the record straight, because too many people are pushing stories that aren't true just to fuel outrage and division. They also tend to get evasive and weirdly sensitive when they're called out. I'm pretty upfront about covering the DCU versus DCEU debate. It's a niche-specific area, and I also weave in broader coverage of all things DC, creating whatever channel interest there is for the hubbub. Speaking of which, please hit the subscribe and like button, please. You can tap the notification bell so you're kept in the loop of when new hubbub videos are uploaded. It helps our small channel and debate community. Now on to my point of the hypocrisy going, yet for some reason, if you point out to a Snyder Bro channel like Mr. Phenom, hey, your last 15 videos were 90% trashing the Gunn DCU, the pushback and replies suddenly get extremely defensive. Same thing with Aaron Fisher and other SnyderVerse channels that clearly run SnyderVerse-focused content but don't want to openly claim the label. It honestly wouldn't even be that big of a deal if they just owned it. Just say what you are. Aaron will post like 10 straight Zack is back and DCU is over videos with thumbnails presenting it as established fact when literally nothing happened. Then if nothing comes of it, suddenly it becomes, well, plans changed or Warner Bros. Sabotaged it because they fear visionary cinema. Then a random review video getting 10% of the views. I saw he just did some kind of hotel vacation review randomly. You know why? Because he's going to do a Trash the Lanterns series video. Then his defense? Oh, I cover other things. Yeah, sure, buddy. For every 20 Gunn and Snyder engagement videos, you maybe drop one non-DCU hit job video. Yet many of their channels try to say if we're covering the DCU, we shouldn't bring up the SnyderVerse. And the reactions to stuff like Lanterns are always unintentionally hilarious. The second people hear it's a grounded detective story, why is there sunlight? Zack would have shot this during a volcanic eclipse. Green Lantern should be an operatic myth about gods confronting entropy in 4:3 aspect ratio. If there's actual natural dialogue, exactly the problem. Why aren't they speaking like ancient tablets translated from Kryptonian? If Hal Jordan smiles one time, this is MCU humor. Snyder understood that superheroes should look emotionally devastated while staring into the middle distance. And if the show gets good reviews, critics hated truth when Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice came out too. If it gets bad reviews, Warner Bros. Sabotaged it because they fear visionary cinema. The funniest possible outcome is honestly if the show just ends up being solid, not revolutionary, not terrible, just two lanterns solving cosmic crimes while the internet treats it like the fall of Rome. So if the DCU is supposedly failing, why are Snyder Bros watching, covering, and reacting to every single thing it does? Somewhere along the way, the Zack Snyder OnlyFans known as the Snyder Bros, every piece of DCU news gets filtered through one question. Does this restore the Snyderverse? If Lanterns trends, suddenly every Restore the Snyderverse channel is covering it. If Supergirl gets casting news, the same cycle starts again. And at this point, it's not even debate anymore. It's become reality versus forced hate. The DC fandom split is real. There are DC fans who want the entire universe to succeed, and then there are Snyder-only fans, the Snyder Bros, who seem invested in one specific era surviving forever. That difference matters because one group is excited about the future of DC, while the other treats every new project like competition. The pattern is impossible to ignore now. The second Lanterns gets positive buzz, suddenly channels that spent months saying the DCU would fail are making non-stop videos about it. Same with Supergirl. They claim they don't care about the new DCU, yet they cover every update obsessively. Why? Because deep down they know these projects matter. A lot of this isn't even genuine fandom anymore, it's engagement farming. Outrage gets clicks. DCU is doomed gets views. James Gunn destroyed DC gets reactions. But the second early reactions are positive, or test screenings sound promising, the narrative suddenly changes to, well, actually, this might secretly help restore Snyder's vision. And that contradiction exposes the real issue. If the DCU was truly irrelevant to SnyderVerse fans, they wouldn't be covering it every single day. The obsession with every casting announcement, every trailer rumor, and every production leak tells you everything. Despite all the hate, the new DCU has their attention. At some point, DC fans have to decide what matters more, celebrating new stories or staying trapped in a fandom civil war that ended years ago. Because the DCU is moving forward, with or without the Snyderverse, sadly, a lot of their hatred is ignorance anyways. Look at the new Lanterns trailer reactions, still crying and failing to make valid points to serve their hate. I'm actually a bigger John Stewart fan than Hal Jordan, so seeing Lanterns potentially explore his upbringing and origins is something I genuinely appreciate. One of the biggest problems in Hollywood is that African-American superheroes rarely get the same depth, emotional backstory, and character-building focus that other heroes get. A lot of times they're introduced after the fact, skipped over, or treated like side additions instead of fully developed leads. So no, this isn't about some liberal agenda like people online immediately try to claim whenever representation gets discussed. It's just reality. Historically, Hollywood has not invested the same amount of time into telling black superhero origin stories with care and importance. That's changing slowly, and honestly, it should. That's why I'm rooting for Aaron Pierre. Not because of politics, not because of forced diversity, but because John Stewart is a great character who deserves the spotlight. He's one of the most respected Green Lanterns in DC history, and for a lot of fans, he is their Green Lantern. And the funny thing is, Hal Jordan is still getting his due in this series. From everything we know, Lanterns is also covering Hal's Green Lantern career and positioning him as a veteran mentor figure to John Stewart. So it's not like Hal is being erased or disrespected. Both characters are important to the story. One is the experienced Lantern, and the other is the rising hero whose journey we get to grow with. People also forget that Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern movie wasn't hated because Hal Jordan was the lead. Most fans agree Ryan Reynolds had the charisma for Hal. The bigger problem was the story itself. The writing, tones, CGI execution, and rushed world-building held it back more than the character ever did. And Lanterns as a series has the advantage of being able to explore the mythology properly instead of cramming everything into one movie. A lot of casual fans think Green Lantern is just one hero, but the Lantern world is way bigger than that. The Green Lantern Corps represent willpower. Yellow represents fear. Red represents rage. Blue represents hope. Star sapphires represent love. Orange represents greed. Indigo represents compassion. Black represents death. That emotional spectrum is one of the most unique concepts DC has ever created, and a series has the space to actually explore it properly, along with the politics of the Corps, the cosmic side of DC, and the different Lantern factions. A lot of the early criticism toward Lanterns also runs into a pretty simple issue: people reacting to things they haven't actually seen yet. Some of the complaints are based on teaser footage or very early marketing, which by design doesn't show the full context of the story. That's why you'll see things like Hal Jordan's suit being described as old or outdated, when in the actual story he's a veteran Green Lantern, and the series reportedly spans a timeline with a significant gap between key events. In that context, the look isn't a flaw, it's part of showing experience and history. The same goes for concerns about there not being enough Green Lantern visuals in early footage. That's how teasers are structured. They're meant to establish tone and mystery, not reveal the full scope of the Lantern mythology. That's also why later trailers naturally show more, and why the full series will obviously expand far beyond what any short promotional cut can include. So a lot of the negative assumptions come from judging incomplete information rather than waiting for the actual context the show is building toward. But a lot of discourse around this stuff shows a bigger issue. Some people are only engaging with DC through the lens of the live-action Snyder-era films, so anything outside that version gets dismissed too quickly. The broader comic history, the animated adaptations, and decades of Green Lantern lore often get ignored, which leads to a very narrow understanding of the character and world.
Because I'm not the biggest Green Lantern fan. I know a little bit. I know that they've ignored a lot of the lore in the Green Lanterns. So I'm going to keep my eyes out for people who are true Green Lantern fans, and I'm going to watch and see what they say about this.
We could have put out a trailer that was tremendously green. So the question is, why didn't you? Why didn't you? If you could have, why didn't you? Again, it just shows that they're giving the middle finger to the fans.
If Lanterns delivers on tone, world building, and character depth, it's the kind of project that could easily appeal to a wide range of fans, even those who might initially dismiss it, because at the end of the day, good storytelling is what everyone actually responds to. A lot of the current discourse around DC still gets stuck in comparing everything to the Snyder-era films, but at some point, it's worth being honest about the situation. That version of the DC film universe is no longer active and hasn't had new installments for years. Meanwhile, the current DCU is the one that is actively being developed, expanded, and shaped with new projects, new casting, and a long-term plan. So framing every new announcement through the lens of a past continuity that isn't being continued anymore doesn't really line up with how the studio direction actually works right now. Treating an inactive continuity as if it's still the competing current universe doesn't really reflect what's actually being built today. With that, it's today's hubbub. No SnyderVerse, no problem. Gunn keeps winning, and DCU is what's in the news. Woo!